I believe we are live, have been for a few minutes, so thank you for your patience. We are waiting for a city clerk still, so we will get to the meeting momentarily. I'd like to begin by acknowledging with respect that we are in Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as Bawating. Bawating is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council. Madam Clerk?
Addendum to be published and we pass the motion to I can do a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Gardy resolved that the minutes of regular council meeting of December 18, 2023 be approved.
All in favor? That carries. Declaration.
Just waiting for
No
the
problem.
addendum to be published so that agenda and addendum.
Council, any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, I think we'll ask that Ms. Cormier do her presentation while the addendum is published so that we are making good use of council time. Welcome to council, Ms. Cormier. Floor is yours.
Great, thank you, everyone. Before I jump in here, there was an addendum made to the community charging infrastructure plan. There are only 13 public stations, not 14. Things are jumping. Okay, so I'll start with a bit of background on how this project came to be. So back in 2022, council passed a resolution directing staff to develop. To develop a community charging infrastructure plan. Just for a bit of context, transportation accounts for the majority of our community greenhouse gas emissions, excluding industry. Increasing opportunities to encourage the adoption of EVs is one of many steps that the city needs to consider to meet our goal of net zero emissions. The city has a wide range of other transportation and land use policies, programs, and infrastructure initiatives that are either in use or in the planning stage to increase the use of more sustainable transportation in Sault Ste. Marie. So walking, cycling, public transit. Active transportation and public transit must also continue to be prioritized through the development of the active transportation plan, which is underway, as well as electric transit electrification. Similarly, the planning department's Grow the Sioux project is also considering addressing ways to ensure EV readiness. So the overview of the plan itself focuses on actions and opportunities to increase charging infrastructure, specifically for light-duty vehicles, and provides a thorough understanding of municipal best practices to enable their deployment. As I mentioned, a thorough analysis was conducted looking at some of the opportunities and challenges as it pertains to charging infrastructure. We'll start with the opportunities. Bit of a no-brainer here, but reducing emissions. EVs produce less GHGs than their internal combustion engine vehicle equivalents because they run either off of electricity or a combination of electricity and fossil fuels. Here in Ontario, our grid is relatively clean. Municipal authority. Municipal governments are created under provincial statute, which allows them to govern over matters of local jurisdiction, can make bylaws under the Municipal Act as it relates to matters of health, safety, and the environment. Examples include the Planning Act, site plan authorities, parking requirements, zoning bylaws, and climate change bylaws, to name a few. There are also some economic opportunities associated with the adoption of EVs. Their life cycle, firstly, and most importantly, has significant cost savings. The fuel cost to charge an EV at home is significantly less. As well, retrofitting existing buildings to allow for charging can be quite costly and time consuming. So planning ahead to advance EV readiness and new infrastructure at the time of construction would be a prudent step. Equity, as the adoption of EVs continues to grow, the provision of publicly available charging infrastructure can offset the cost of EV ownership for households with limited availability to on-site charging. Moving on to some of the challenges. Access to charging infrastructure is one of them. As previously mentioned, we do have 13 public charging stations in Sault Ste. Marie. Most of them are located at hotels, gas stations. Some of them require you to be a patron, but we do need to take a bit of a change management process, if you will. When it comes to charging electric vehicles, it's different than how we currently fuel our vehicles at the gas station. So we certainly need more access to that. Looking at things such as, new builds, as well as retrofitting existing assets. Another challenge is cost. It's a common understanding that electric vehicles are more expensive than internal combustion engine or ICE vehicles. For the purpose of this plan, a sample was taken looking at the MRSP sticker price of your standard EV models available in Ontario, and they are about 71% more money upfront. However, when you look at the total cost of ownership from the sample that was analyzed for this project, the cost of ownership of EVs is coming down, and it's actually less expensive over the life cycle of the asset to own an EV than it is an internal combustion engine. Costs, that's another issue. The interest rate piece, despite greater availability of EV models, interest rates are high and they're forecast to stay high. So that's something that will certainly need to be considered for EV portfolios, manufacturers. Load management and utility deposit concerns as well. There is significant concern from developers when it comes to the cost implications associated with electricity allocation. The plan goes into more detail on the capital cost recovery process. I won't go into that here. And also, lastly, information and awareness. As previously mentioned, despite an increase in availability in EVs in the Canadian market, there still is a thorough misunderstanding about EVs, often associated to life cycle costs, how charging works, where their chargers are available, as well as range anxiety. And this can negatively impact consumers. So efforts certainly need to be taken to address that. Next slide. Some examples from other municipalities were included in the development of this plan. This is certainly not a new endeavor across the province of Ontario. They look at certain things such as creating new regulations that require new developments to include a certain percentage of EV charging stations. Kitchener had a bylaw with a minimum of 20% of parking spaces for non-residential buildings, required for multiple dwellings to be EV ready. Same for the city of Toronto. Next slide. Similarly, we see with the city of Waterloo, they have a requirement for all structured parking spaces for apartments, multi-unit residential buildings, and MURBs to built after January 2021 to be EV ready. Town of Ajax and the town of Whitby also have green development standards that encourage EV readiness as well, which is a key recommendation of this plan. Next. During the development of this plan, assessment of best practices for siting deployment was looked at. Specifically, 5 key attributes were identified, including equitable accessibility. So ensuring fair distribution based on population density must be considered. Amenities and convenience, so access to amenities, especially for fast charging. Proximity to services such as, businesses, transit routes, as well as residential factors. So multi-unit residential buildings to accommodate those who may not have private charging options, as well as community and infrastructure support. When it comes to locations, consideration should be given to high traffic areas. So installing stations where we have high foot traffic, commercial activity, shopping, and community centers. Workplaces, this is another opportunity so we can assess some of the demand that would often occur at night when everyone is home, charging their electric vehicles, public institutions such as community centers, as well as future developments and consideration in public parking facilities. So the plan itself has 3 key objectives, including charging availability, education, advocacy, and municipal leadership and governance. There are 13 actions in the plan, many of which are already underway. Each action addresses the objective, responsibility, timeline, and performance measures. Additional resources were included, including zoning, planning, and building codes, as well as funding support programs and policies and legislation. As previously mentioned, quite a few of these initiatives are underway, which is great to see. When it comes to Pillar 1 of the plan, charging availability, efforts have been are underway to address high priority areas for public charging infrastructure and looking for all and applying to all available funding, which I will be doing later on this month with a request to council with more costs, etc. Education and advocacy is a big pillar of this as well. Last year, the City of Sault Ste. Marie partnered with the PUC and the Sioux Climate Hub to host Sault Ste. Marie's very first EV showcase. All partners were very satisfied with the delivery of this event, and we hope to continue this myth buster, if you will, activity on an annual basis. When it comes to municipal leadership and governance, the municipality does have an opportunity here to be a leader when it comes to EV readiness by incorporating EV chargers within our own fleet as well as city facilities, continuing to collaborate with stakeholders as well as updating city policies such as zoning bylaws for EV readiness. And we are, when it comes to city leadership, working on establishing an internal working group to oversee the progress and implementation of city corporate fleet charging infrastructure. As I mentioned, there is some funding available right now for municipalities. One in particular is the provincial charge on funding program targeting smaller municipalities with populations of 170,000 people or less. So we'll certainly be applying to that one. It's a competitive grant program that will provide up to 75% of the capital funding. Similarly, the federal government has their Natural Resources Canada Zero Emission Vehicle Infrastructure Program, or ZEVIP. This funding has been around for a while. It's closed, but is opening up again in the spring of 2024 and focusing on charger deployment in public spaces. So next steps is to seek council approval of the plan. As I mentioned, I'll be coming back here with funding and a funding application request later this month, which will look at how we can apply for multiple sources of funding, but also the estimated costs for future chargers on city facilities for consideration. And then, as I said, we are developing an internal working group to oversee the deployment of our own fleet infrastructure charging project. This is a living document rather. It is a start. The EV space is constantly evolving. There's new technology, regulations, etc. So consider this a starting point. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Emily or Ms. Cormier. Got questions from Councillor Hollingsworth?
Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Emily. Wonderful presentation and good information. I always like hearing you talk about funding. So I have two questions. I know you're coming back to council with regards to funding. Wonderful. And I know that you're always digging into more funding, but can you elaborate on the funding you're looking for is just for us, for the municipality, is that correct?
The funding that's available is open to anyone in the province of Ontario looking to build public charging infrastructure. So the keyword is public. It has to be available on a public basis, not for you privately, for your staff or, members of a specific group. They have to be available publicly.
Okay.
That's the provincial funding. The federal funding, I haven't done a deep enough dive yet. I do believe fleets are available as well, but I have to double check on that one.
Okay. But you're going to come back and elaborate on that?
Yep.
Okay. Great. That's my point. I was just wanting you to confirm or, open up to what does public really mean? And you just answered that question. So can you give me another example? Let's say the Sioux Area Hospital. Would that be considered public and would they be able to apply?
If they were looking to install chargers in their parking lot for patrons of the hospital, and it was not in like a gated specific section that was only allowed for staff, yes, that would be eligible.
Okay. And then just to make sure I understand this. So if you have a developer that's building an apartment building.
Yep.
And they want to have a charger for their tenants, but they also want chargers for visitors, how would they apply?
For that funding, like if it's specific to tenants and visitors for that asset, that building, I don't think that would be considered public. So I don't believe that would be eligible, but I can double check with the funder
Okay.
for that specific funding.
Okay, that's great. Because again, as we move forward with more housing developments, more apartment developments, I think we need to nail that down to service our developers better.
Absolutely. And that's where, having requirements for new builds, different sectors, be it residential, commercial, can ensure that that is taken into consideration as opposed to having to apply for a limited, grant source. So it's being proactive.
Okay, great. In closing, I look forward to you coming back to council in the future with further updates, and hopefully you can come back to council with some more reports on how we can have more environmentally friendly developments and subdivisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Cormier, similar to actually what Councillor Hollingsworth is saying, do the publicly available chargers, is there any stipulation that they have to be free, or we're able to charge like market rates or, whatever we'd like to for the power?
Through you, Councillor Scott, through you, Mayor, Councillor Scott. Sorry, I forgot to do that earlier. Yeah, there's no stipulation. So yes, we can charge for them.
Okay.
The funding is specifically for the upfront costs of building that infrastructure.
Okay, and then everything after that would be
Correct.
competitive market pricing, whatever that would be. Okay, that was basically all I really had on this. So thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth, for doing most of the heavy lifting. Great report. Looking forward to seeing more. Thank you for taking the time to put that together.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Kinnick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'd like to make some comments because I believe I'm the only one on council who drives an electric car. So that's still true as of last meeting. Didn't see anybody else in the parking spots with an electric car. So I have a 2019 Ford Fusion plug-in hybrid. So I think I have, I'd just like to give you some information about my experience with my car. I've been driving it around. I was able to get the PUC home charger installed, when was it? Before our election in the fall. And that program has been really good because that is one of the biggest challenges for people with electric car is getting that charging station installed at home. It's quite a big upfront cost. The PUC has this plan where you pay it over 5 years. So with that, and you pay like a rental and like an insurance policy on the unit. And if anything happens with the unit, they come and replace it. So just to let you know, so that runs me about $75 a month right now. For 5 years after that, it will be about $35 a month just for the rental and the insurance on the charger. With my car, it's a plug-in hybrid. I get 50 kilometers to a full charge. That takes about 2 hours on a fast charger. I don't see a big difference on my PUC bill monthly with water and electricity. I didn't notice a difference. With my car, I can drive around the city from May to October without filling up my gas tank, and I charge it probably 3 times a week for 50 kilometers range there. During the winter months, my range drops from 50 kilometers to about 20 kilometers because as soon as you want to heat your car, all the energy goes to defrosting your windshield. And another thing too with the plug-in hybrid, nice thing is I get 1,000 kilometers on 1 tank of gas for highway driving. And I get an extra 5% off on my car insurance every year because I drive plug-in hybrid. So I think that's valuable information for everybody listening today. Beyond that, I have some questions for Ms. Cormier. So the big issue that everybody is talking about is how is our grid going to support this? We know Algoma Steel is going online with the arc furnace soon. Do we see any issues or have that been discussed with the PUC, like charging capacity, grid capacity?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. Yes, the province is going through a bulk system upgrade currently, and they will be building out our grid in Ontario to support the electrical needs.
And the existing PUC program that I talked about, is that still going to be continued into the future, or with this funding you were talking about for public parking or public charging stations, is the PUC going to roll back that program?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. Yes, the PUC residential program will continue, and the PUC will continue to support the city in all our public charging when they can also.
Okay. And another thing, just because I've been in the world of electric cars for a while, and sometimes it is very difficult to find a charger, especially when you're out of town and you can't charge at your house. I use this one app called Charge Points, and there's other ones that are available in the app stores to find where I can find EV charging spots. So these are all set up in the private sector. So are we looking to work with them, these kind of companies as well, to build our infrastructure?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. Yes, there's a lot of companies out there that do help manage charging systems, certainly doing some research into the different systems. I will add that there is a public site called Plug and Share, where you can find out anywhere in Canada where the public charging vehicle infrastructure is. Biggest benefit would be to find a company that could develop a very simple payment system, because all of these different chargers, they can vary, like depending on where you go. So that will certainly improve the experience for the consumer. You know, a lot of them vary. The market here in the Soo is still quite small, so we do have time to figure this out. Whatever we do, if we decide to pursue something like that, would need to go to RFP. Or, you know, if the city were to manage it ourselves. So certainly looking into that, and we'll share more details on it.
One more question I have is about the type of chargers being installed, because with my car, if I go to the Volkswagen dealer that has a charger, I can't plug my car in there. My car can be, the Ford can be plugged in at the GM and at Ford. Also, I can't plug my car into a Tesla. So how are we going to balance, like, do you have any ideas on how we're going to balance the type of chargers where they are, or are we going to, like, is there going to be a universal adapter available at the charging stations? How is that?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. Again, pending funding for this project to move forward, we'll certainly ensure that anyone who can pay for it will be able to use it. I'm not sure why that one car dealership is specific. Perhaps it's been around for a while. I'm not sure, but these should be universal because they are going on public sites. We want people to be able to use them. Again, pending funding.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnick. Councillor Bezuilen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Ms. Cormier. Thank you, Emily, so much for your passion and really appreciate all the detailed work that you give and all the contributions you give in terms of making our city greener. My question was very similar to Councillor Kinnick in that how can we incorporate sort of like a mapping of our charging stations? I think that would be important to connect with tourism as well. So locally, especially, we have people coming all season, be it whether they're fat biking or mountain biking or skiing. So that would just be my recommendation in terms of having that infrastructure in place once it's there, is reaching out to tourism. So that's something that they can also add to their list of amenities in Sault Ste. Marie. But thank you so much.
If I may comment, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Vazu-Allen, we do have a website, a web page rather, on the city's website that has a listing of all public EV chargers in Sault Ste. Marie, as well as a map made by the city's GIS person to show visually where they are, as well as a picture of the building that's been provided to the city's tourism department, which is on Tourism Sault Ste. Marie's website as well.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vazu-Allen. Councillor Gardy?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Emily, when I brought this motion forward for a resolution to bring back a report about infrastructure charging throughout the community, I knew it was going to be pretty detailed and heavy lift, and I thought you were probably going to be responsible for it. I just wanted to say it was an excellent report, as good as that personally that I've seen come back from staff. So I appreciate the time and effort that you put into it. Just some further comments. You know, I think as a modern community moving forward, we need to be on the leading edge of this type of stuff. We see where the world of automotive manufacturing is going, whether it be electric vehicles and or hydrogen engine development. So I am very hopeful moving forward as Emily and staff comes back to us for us to actualize this initial plan, that this council will be supportive of it. And good luck in seeking any types of funding you can for our community, Emily. Thanks.
Councillor Gardy?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Emily for an excellent and very detailed report. I was just wondering for some of the next steps, if we have an approximate timeline on when some of these reports will be coming back to council, specifically anything that has to do with the planning process for new developments. Do we have an idea of when we'll be bringing that back?
No, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Dufour, not for the specific planning projects, but for the funding application. It's my anticipation to be here on January 29th.
Okay, thanks. That's soon.
Thank you. So do for any other councillors with questions? Thank you, Ms. Cormier. Very detailed report and much appreciated. We have had a request for a delegation on this agenda item, which we will hear from now. Welcome to council, Mr. Breakin. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council.
Got 3 minutes.
I just wanted to provide respectful comments to Council on this issue. It's a massive undertaking, economically speaking. Just so you folks know, I've got a post-secondary education in commerce and environmental science, and I've studied some of these issues quite deeply, scientifically speaking, and I think many doctorates would agree there's no consensus in science. Root causes are not necessarily certain. CO2 does not have a definitive causative relationship with temperature. CO2 is essential for all life. I know that there are many other pollutants that we are worried about.
Mr. Breakin.
I know it's going to be on this.
Your comments have to be specific to the report that's before.
It will be. Yep.
But soon.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I just note that we value air quality and water quality in this area, the natural resources that we're blessed with nearby. And I'd just like to point out for the folks at home, some major environmental issues that we should have our attention on include military and commercial geoengineering programs illegally already being deployed. And I'd recommend that the folks at home check out geoengineeringwatch.org for further information. But I quote David Helwig's recent article on the CIP, where he quotes, by 2025, all passenger cars, SUVs, crossovers, and light trucks sold in Canada must be zero emission. I recall Malcolm White said in November at the strategic planning session that the municipal corporations are essentially creatures of the province and the federal government, and therefore they don't set their own agendas. And because of funding arrangements, they have to be fulfilling those stipulations. That statement in Mr. Helwig's article seems quite authoritarian at first glance. And I know we're trying to incentivize transition to electric vehicles, but how feasible is it exactly? The upfront costs are extremely high, more than many can afford in the current economic situation we find ourselves in. Service options are very slim in Sault Ste. Marie. Most people that I know that have electric vehicles have to take their vehicle down to Barrie for service, or other places in Southern Ontario. In the report, it cites 187 EV registered in Sault Ste. Marie versus 52,036 gas-powered vehicles. And then I'd add also the environmental impacts of manufacturing EVs, mining of lithium and cobalt, and other environmental impacts, the use of fossil fuels. It doesn't necessarily outweigh the benefits of using an electric vehicle. And I note that Sault Today article on June 1st, 2023, the reporter states the cables on at least 8 electric vehicle charging stations at Service Canada building on Bay Street appeared to have recently been cut. And the manufacturer of those stations says that it's a problem that's becoming more common.
Thank you.
And I just recommend that we, the public, come out and have these types of conversations with council and let alternative perspectives be heard on some of these issues. Thank you for letting me speak today. Thank you.
So we will move to agenda item 5. That's a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Scott. Resolved that the agenda for January 8, 2024 City Council meeting and addendum number 1 as presented be approved.
All in favor? That carries.
And then agenda item 8.1.1 is a report of the CAO selection committee, and that refers to bylaw. So I have a bylaw moved by councillors Hollingsworth and Gardy. Resolved that bylaw 2024-9 being a bylaw to appoint Tom Vare as Chief Administrative Officer of the City of Sault Ste. Marie be passed in open council this 8th day of January 2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. As the report notes, the CAO Selection Committee has recommended that Tom Vare be appointed the city's next Chief Administrative Officer upon the retirement of Mr. White on January 31st, 2024. It was a extensive search process that led to this recommendation, and we congratulate Tom, presuming that the vote goes in your favor. And we will have a vote on that unless there are questions of council. Council, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Mr. Vare, congratulations. Your appointment's effective February 1st, and I'll offer you the chance to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm honored to be selected to serve as the CAO for the City of Sault Ste. Marie. I'd like to thank Mayor Shoemaker and the selection committee and all of council for your support for selecting me in this role. I look forward to continuing to work with City Council and implementing council priorities moving forward. Look forward to working with the business community, nonprofits, organizations in the community and residents to make sure that we're building on our strengths, addressing our challenges, building a prosperous city for everyone in Sault Ste. Marie. I would like to recognize the great team that we have here at the City of Sault Ste. Marie. I look forward to continuing to work with everyone on the city team in this new role and excited to continue to provide excellent service for the residents of the City of Sault Ste. Marie. I would like to especially thank Malcolm White for all of his guidance and support, mentorship over the years. It's big shoes to fill, obviously, and over the next month, I'll be working hard to cram as much knowledge and experience into my brain as possible from Malcolm before he leaves. He has committed to answering the phone to help me out in the future. as long as he's not in the backwoods camping somewhere out of. And finally, I'd just like to thank my family for all their support. My parents, Myrna and Bill, my brother Jim and his family, my children, Audrey, Andrew, and James, and of course, my wife, Michelle. Thank you very much.
Mr. Fair, we look forward to you starting on February 1st, but we're not eager to see you go, Mr. White, but we know it's inevitable. So thank you as well for your service. And you'll have more to say next meeting, I'm sure. Council, that brings us to the consent agenda. We've had a request to accept 7.1 and 7.2 from the consent agenda. So
7.
sorry, 7.1 and 7.4. So that leaves us with questions on 7.2, which we've already dealt with, and 7.3 if you've got any. Anybody with questions on 7.3? Seeing none.
So I have a motion by councillors Spina and Gardy resolved that all items listed under date January 8, 2024, agenda item 7, consent agenda, save and accept, agenda item 7.1 and 7.4 be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carries.
So agenda item 7.1 is the living wage certification. I have a motion by councillor Spina and Scott resolved that the report of the Director of Human Resources dated January 8, 2024 concerning living wage certification be received and that staff be directed to propose amendments to the current part-time and summer student wage grid for council's consideration.
Council, questions on this? Councillor Kinnick.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to CAO White. What is current rule for how many staff kids can be employed with the city, and when was it last updated?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. There is no specific policy that relates only to summer students who are children of current city employees. What I can say is, starting a couple of years ago, we've had significant challenges in recruiting summer students. We have changed the policy for all summer students. We previously, or our policy previously only allowed one summer student per family. That's any family in Sault Ste. Marie to work for us. And they also had to have completed at least 1 year of post-secondary education and be enrolled to for the next year to go back to post-secondary education. We have amended that policy to allow more than one student per family to work and to allow children, or I shouldn't say children, students who are graduating high school to work for us as summer students. We did that in an attempt to make sure we could fill all our summer student positions. And it worked well last year in that we were able to get a full contingent, but we just barely got a full complement of summer students.
I believe this budget, we added 6 more summer student positions, correct?
We added 6 positions to the complement. That was after 2 years of previous cuts to the complement.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Michelle. What is the dollar figure each full-time and part-time student is expected more to make, and the total cost for each to the city with employment costs, like including Canada pension, EI, employer health tax?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Kinnick. It will depend on the position. I did provide to council an additional information to Appendix 2 that was included with the council report. And again, it depends on how many hours they work, et cetera. So it does range on what the actual increase will be per position. Some are very close and others are fairly low, much lower than what the living wage is.
Okay, just that, I'd like to comment. I think all the councillors see it, but we'll see it. So what she sent there in that file. So we have part-time students under the 18 years would be getting to reach the living wage would get 31% increase. where in the same formula that we're using here, a lifeguard, which has to go through training, instruction, upkeep of those life-saving skills, certification, is only getting a 3% raise if we did this across the board. So I don't think that's very fair, the way that's, yes, it's great that we want to do a full living wage across the board, but there are some jobs that are unproportionately like raised, and some jobs that are more difficult and more qualifications required are not getting the appropriate raise, I think, in this blanket system. And just further to example that, I wanted to ask our HR, head of HR, Nicole. For example, if we wanted to do through you, Mr. Mayor, to Nicole, head of HR, if we were considering to increase a group for a staff raise, like say like single mothers, would we be able to do that through HR? What would be the standpoint on HR? How would we be able to do that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, to pinpoint one group based on something like one of the grounds might not be the best go for reasons of, potential types of discrimination. So let's stay away from something like that. What we would want to do is to make note that, where our pay practices are something that's based on fair representative duties and roles and tasks of the position, not because of somebody's family status, for example.
Yes, see, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, is where lifeguards are only going to get a 3% raise. We can't give a raise to single mothers who would be probably best impacted with a good raise. Just closing comment, I'd like to say, in this report, there is a lot of this. I'm going to read a quote. Staff be directed to propose amendments to current part-time and summertime student wage grid for considerations. Total cost of living wage certification here would be approximate $720,000. That's to include both full-time and part-time students. So that would be about a 0.5% tax increase next year, right there on meeting 1 of 2024. Roughly across the board, I think this from the report, it said about a 21% tax increase from, let's say, minimum wage was at $16 an hour to $19.80. That's about 23.75%. By my calculations in the report, because it's disproportional raises, it turns out to be about 21%. So that leaves us in the position of, when we go to negotiate contracts next time with the unions, are the unions going to sit down and not budge from 21%, because that's what we gave to all part-time and full-time students? I think we really have to be careful with what kind of precedent we're going to set here today. I think it's great that we want to increase the wages, and that would be more competitive for hiring, but we do have to be very careful and not to blanket it, and because we will put ourselves in a position where it's going to cost us a lot more in the future, I think. So that's everything I had to say about that. Please consider what I had to say on your vote today. Thank you.
Madam Director of HR, just for clarification, the way I read the recommendation here, it says resolved that the report of the Human Resources Director dated January 8, 2024 concerning living wage certification be received, and that the staff be directed to propose amendments to the current part-time and summer student wage grid for council's consideration. If we approve that tonight, are we approving a wage increase?
Mr. Mayor, it would not be. It's basically having me come back with a report of something that to consider of what to put in place as a compensation policy to adjust the grid in some format, doing anything percentage-wise dollar tonight.
Right. So we're sending you back with more work. We aren't approving a living wage tonight. And if you went back, you might not ultimately get the grid to a living wage standard.
Not unless that was something that council wanted to work towards, in which case we'd have to have more conversation around what is the dollar amount that you want to achieve with a living wage? Is it the one that the LWN is out, remember, or is it another dollar that you wanted to work towards?
So to suggest that what we approved tonight would impact future negotiations is several steps away from that potential consequence. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Rooney, I stepped in ahead of you there, but I just wanted that clarification for all of council's
Thank
awareness.
you, Mr. Mayor. That was a question I was going to ask. Clarification on the living wage certification regarding staff for the current part-time and summer student wage grid. Just my question is, why are we going to send it back to her? Can we maybe put some type of language that we'll leave it as is process right now for the summer student wages? There is a grid out there. Am I correct? First year, second year, third year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Sir Bruni, we had a grid for 2023. It needs to be looked at for. Previously, it did have 3 steps to it because of the increase to minimum wage. The floor got moved again, so we'll have to take a look at what the increment is. You can tell you in the past what we put together, but it has to be approved this year.
I would be acceptable to that. To certify that I would be against it.
Right. And I don't think that's what's being asked for tonight, but I understand your comments on that. Thank you. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have some comments. I was seeing a lot of talk online about students, and there was discussion here about students, and that students didn't deserve more than a minimum wage or more than what they're being paid. Some of the work that the students did here, just in this last year that I've been privy to seeing the work that students are doing, was excellent. If you followed our social media over the course of the summer, you would have seen work done by students. And I can tell you, for my own personal business, I had looked into having someone work on my social media, and for 3 posts a week, they wanted, it was well over $1,000 for the month. And that was on a 1-year contract. So the work that these students are doing is very impactful, and it does deserve a living wage. I looked into some of the costs of university across Ontario, and I'm going to give you the low end. The low end, which would be if they were going to a school that was charging the same amount as Algoma University, $5,000 for tuition, $6,000 for residence, $4,000 for meals, $900 for their cell phone plan, as we in Canada are paying some of the highest rates for cell phones, would be $15,900. These kids are coming to work to pay to go to school, and not every family has the money to send a child to school just off the backs of that family. So giving this money to these students is investing in ourselves, essentially. I would like to see students put at least higher than minimum wage myself, but further than that, I would ask through you, Mr. Mayor, to CAO White, could we investigate outside positions and where the city sits in the market for comparison purposes for the jobs that are listed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Caputo, if you would like a review of those positions, we certainly can do that. We probably should get a resolution of council to do it.
Okay. I don't know what the policy is in doing that, but
I think a motion at the next council
Yeah.
is probably best for that.
okay. So just to be clear, I think everyone deserves a living wage. I would love to see it. I agree with you, Ms. Ottolino, that the Ontario Living Wage Network is maybe not the way to go about it. But I would love to see a policy developed by us for our residents, and ensuring that we're taking care of the people that are working here the same way that they are taking care of this building and of our citizens. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Vezoul.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a resolution that Councillor and I put forth, and just some comments, and then I'll have a question for Ms. Ottolini. So this came forth through the Poverty Roundtable from United Way back in 2020. At that time, the living wage was, I want to say it was $16.13 or $16.23. Now we have for 2023, the Northern living wage is $19.80. So I don't think we need to go to the Ontario Living Wage Network and being certified through them. I think it's really taking a look at what we're doing globally with our part-time so that we're equitable. Because I don't see, what we're looking for here is equity, that we can actually, because right now minimum wage is $16.50 an hour. So it's more than what the Poverty Roundtable determined in 2020. So our grid will go higher regardless because minimum wage has raised. So I think, for us to attract and retain great summer employment, part-time employment, it's hard work when you go to the GFL and everyone's jamming into the concessions for their snack at Greyhound games. It's kind of a bit of a thankless job. So, you see now McDonald's is saying, hey, we're going to pay you $18 an hour and we're going to give you an incentive. Well, why would they come work at our concession when they can go do that? So I think looking at just who we are as a corporation, as an employer, being able to support part-time and students so that we have really great staff and they know that they are appreciated. And to comment on Councillor Kinnick's concerns about collective agreements in union, cost of living is built into union agreements. They're already making above the living wage. They're getting cost of living increases. Part-time is getting, hey, you've come back for the second summer, you get a little bit more, you get a little bit more, you get a little bit more. So that's really, I think, what the essence of the resolution was not taking a look at what the Ontario Living Wage Network was. It's taking a look at the impact, progress on impact report from 2020, was recommendations for our city as a whole. So I think right now we have about 5 or 6 employers that all pay a living wage. I think primarily to full-time staff, we'd have to investigate that. So I support that we need to continue looking at how we are paying staff so that we can attract and retain and actually pay our staff a decent wage for those part-time jobs, regardless of whether you need a certification to be a lifeguard. If you have to, make popcorn and sell chocolate bars, that's equally as valuable to us as an employer for providing services to our community as someone who's a lifeguard. So that's my opinion. So Ms. Ottolini, are you familiar with the roundtable or the report on the progressive impact or the social equity work that's been doing there?
Sorry, through the United, did you say?
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's a good place to start. And I can send that to you. And that was really the essence of the resolution, was looking at what we're doing locally, but also there's a lot of work being done provincially in terms of living wage. So, I can say in my experience in hiring students, we pay above minimum wage. And we do that because we want to. And I think that's really important, is that people feel valued even if they're getting 25 cents more than minimum wage. When you are in those wage positions, it makes a big difference in terms of morale. So I want to thank Nicole. This was a very extensive report, and thank you, Michelle. But I think it's really taking a look at organically what can happen with work that's already being done locally. And how we can incorporate that into our best practices and staffing and payment and recruitment at the city. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor Vezoul. Councillor Zagordo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments. By no means are we diminishing the work of young people, and we do want to pay them, an appropriate wage. That's not what I struggle with in terms of looking at this. I'm struggling with, the living wage, who determines third parties. For example, if we're looking at the Ontario Living Wage Network that determines the living wage for areas in Ontario, I was trying to figure out how that was calculated. And in their write-up, they have that the living wage is calculated based on the needs of a family of 4 with 2 parents, each working full-time, full year. And I don't know if that necessarily, and that number that they calculate necessarily fits into what we are trying to do. Later on in their writings as well, they indicate the living wage draws on community-specific data to determine the expenses to a family with 2 working adults and 2 children. So I'm not sure when they, announce a living wage for Northern Ontario of $19.80, if that is a number that we should be calculating on or adding on to or looking at a grid for, and does it fit the criteria of what we are trying to look at? And that's the only thing that I think that we should be looking at, not the only thing, but when calculating a grid or an increase in pay for students, I think we need to be careful of third parties and their calculations and how they arrive at these numbers. And I think Ms. Adelino indicated that in her report as well. So I just echo those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zagordo. Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment to follow up on something that Councillor Bezo Allen is mentioning about attempting to retain and recruit our students. This is something that was sort of discussed at the budget meeting, and I had brought up, how many of our students went on to work. I don't remember the exact phrasing, and hands in this room went up where we had a deputy chief from fire. We had Mr. Lamming over there. We've had summer students and students in general that have turned into long-term quality employees at the city. And I think that that is something very important that we need to maintain. So I think offering those competitive wages is a pretty important factor for that, because like Councillor Bezo Allen was saying, why would you work here for significantly less at McDonald's, where you probably have, and forgive me if I'm wrong, you may have less responsibility there than you would here. And I could be totally inaccurate there. But the point being, how are we going to keep students, here and doing this important work if we're not competitive? So I think that's something important that we need to look at as a council as well.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Gardy?
Actually, I'm all right. Thanks.
Other councillors, questions or comments? I thought the report was very good. I think it generated the right, I think the motion generated the right response. And so I appreciate that Councillor Caputo and Councillor Bezo Allen brought forward a specific idea, the Ontario Living Wage Network's calculation of income. But what came back was, how do we properly compensate people in Sault Ste. Marie? And that's really what we should be considering as a municipality. We are entering, I dare to say probably 20 or so years of tight labor market as the bulk of baby boomers retire, and there are not enough people to replace them by a significant margin. And so without people, immigrating to our community or in migration from within the province or within the country, we are going to have a significant labor shortage, and being competitive in the labor market is one of the ways we can assure that we get the right talent, as opposed to the next place that's going to be competing for that same person. So we have to properly and appropriately remunerate our employees. It's a good job working at City Hall. But we all recognize that, but we also have to be competitive in the marketplace. And with respect to summer students, for several years in a row now, we have not been the most competitive, and we have seen that in our operations, in the not getting as many employees, not getting as many applicants, not hiring a full contingent. And so having a review, not just of these wage grids, but of all our non-union wage grids, is something that I think warrants a deep review, an in-depth review, because it's only going to get more difficult to recruit good people. So when you've got good ones, you want to keep them, but getting them in the door is the first step to that. So appreciate the report back, appreciate that the resolution was brought forward in the first place, and support the recommendation of staff to take a look at this, back to us with. We can have a vote on that. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
Councillor Bruni, you voted in favor. Councillor Zagordo. So it carries 9-2 with councillors Zagordo and Kinnock voting against. That brings us to agenda item 7.4, rental housing incentive program 21 at 617 Queen Street East, the Windsor Place Retirement Residence. I have a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Scott, resolved that the report of the junior planner dated January 8, 2024 concerning rental housing incentive program 21 be received, and that council authorize a 4-year incremental tax grant, 75% in year 1 and 2, 50% in year 3, and 25% in year 4 for the 49-unit retirement facility at 617 Queen Street East, subject to the following. 1, that the municipal tax grant applies only to the increase in assessment resulting from new construction, and 2, after the grant program is completed, full municipal taxes will apply.
Mr. Tenazzo, do you care to provide a brief synopsis on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the Windsor Park Retirement Home. It meets the criteria of our rental housing CIP. This would be the 26th residential project that council has approved over the years to allow this. The CIP was, this rental housing CIP was originally approved in 2014 and then has been extended over the years. The first approval was a 5-year extension, and then it's been extended for 2 years thereafter. And this particular CIP will expire this year, May 19th this year. And again, it does, the application does adhere to the requirements of the program, and we are therefore recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tenazzo. Councillor Bezo-Allen, questions on this?
Just a comment.
Or comments, yeah.
Yeah. I was fortunate to tour with the owner, Feroz Varani, and his son. And I think I'm really happy for the recommendation from planning. You know, the rental housing incentive program, I think, is really critical for us in terms of development, getting more units live. And this creates more mobility in our housing market because we have seniors that are moving out of their single family dwellings and going into assisted living. Further to that, they've done a really excellent job. I toured it just before the holidays. They've created more density in the downtown, which we really want to see. I know there's been added business, especially in terms of some of the neighboring businesses that are folks that are living there that are going over. You know, it's a great walkability location. It's historic. You know, the Queen was there and all that kind of thing. So it just kind of celebrates some of our history. But not just that, they've created, you know, improved infrastructure in our downtown, employment. And I'm really glad that it's kind of doing both. Like, we're providing units, but there's also, it's created a lot new business into our downtown, which I think is really important. And having the rental housing incentive, I think is really a benefit for us. And also, if I think all of you should go check out the units. He's done an amazing job. They all have actuator doors. They're all fully barrier free. And it's just created a really great environment for the folks that are there. So definitely, if you can, get in touch and go see a tour. So I want to thank Peter and his team for bringing this forward. And it's not just, you know, a tax, you know, incentive. It's also creating a whole new community of living in our downtown. So I'm really thankful for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bezo-Allen. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. I just have comments. I just want to echo my colleagues' positive comments, but to add to that, it's a great location. I mean, the individuals that we live in or currently living there can take advantage of our public library, take advantage of I still call the senior center on Bay Street and all the activities they offer. So basically, it's in a core spot of Queen Street. And there's still a wonderful, grocery store in the area they can walk to and again, enjoy our beautiful waterfront. So it's positive. I support this.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Councillor Kinnick.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, CEO there. Yes. Roughly, if we broke, this renovation has 49 units that was said in the reports. So if we broke down the tax per unit, what would roughly the Wins retirement residents pay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick, at this time, we don't have that information that we can share. The property was just completed in 2023. It'll go through assessment. And so we have some preliminary information that CFO Shell could share with you, but we wouldn't be able to answer some of those detailed questions.
You, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kinnick. As Deputy CAO there has said, right now the assessment on that property is at the commercial. It will change to the residential, and that is currently in process. At this time, we also do not have the supplementary taxes for the renovations that are being made. So we don't even really know what the final tax billing is going to be and what the incremental tax rebate will actually come out to.
Okay, so I'd like to just comment also, Councillor Hollingworth, Councillor Ves. Yes, I agree that this is a great thing to have in our downtown, but this is a seniors building. People are downsizing, and giving a tax break to a developer who's making profits off of this. It's great that there's rejuvenating the downtown and everything, but at the same time, it's still discriminating. I myself can't go rent in that building. So I don't think we should be doing a tax break. I know it's from 2014, as Mr. Tenazo mentioned, the bylaw, but people are already saving money, seniors. They're selling their homes, which mostly are mortgage-free at this point. And they just blocked my words there. They're saving money as they're downsizing because it's a seniors building only. Most will be selling their homes to move here, which is a large lump sum of money. We all know the property values in Sault Ste. Marie have skyrocketed over the last 4 years. And we don't have a contract or anything saying that by giving them a tax break, the residents are going to see or pay less rent because of this, the first 5 years. And so I'm going to be voting against it because I think this is the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing in our downtown. We're supposed to densify while increasing people in an area where services are already provided and collecting more tax revenue, not collecting less, densified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few comments. I think it's incumbent on this council and any council to make conditions that are attractive for developments to happen in our community. We have each long talked about the need and requirement for us to add population density, not only in our downtown core, but in other areas of our community. This is another way that I think, this is another tool that we have to make it more attractive for developers to come in and redevelop properties and find a way to reinvest dollars into that property. This property in particular that we're talking about has much more potential in the further development of the property. So anything we can do as a city here to help incentivize that and help make it more attractive for developers to continue to build these projects is really important. And I think it's something we all need to support. I'm happy to support that here today. And I think it's really important for us to note that no, as it was suggested, not
all seniors are sitting on a bucket of money and can spend more dollars. I don't believe that to be something that is happening in our community. Seniors need all the help we can get. If we can help attract developers to build affordable, accessible housing for them in our community, as Councillor Bezuallen and Councillor Hollingsworth have indicated, these are very highly accessible units that people can easily move around in, and it has built not only that, has built a sense of community in our downtown core, which is something that we're all thriving towards. So I think these projects are important. I encourage more developers to bring projects like this forward so that we can look at those and find further ways to add density to our community.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Councillor Gardy.
Real quickly, Mr. Mayor, just to bounce or to echo somewhat of what Mr. or Councillor Spina said. And if it was mentioned before, forgive me, but like this piece of property is several incarnations over the course of the last 20 years, right? And what we want to do is we want to make sure it's stable moving forward. I'm supportive of this for the reasons outlined by some of my colleagues, but I don't want us to forget the challenges that this piece of property has had the course of the last couple of decades.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. I was going to make some same comments. I think that what we wished we could have had at this property last term is what we've got now, which is people living in it. Last term, it was vacant, it was flooded, there was problems with it. And then the new owner came in and was able to repurpose it successfully. One thing I did want to clarify, and perhaps I'll set out what I think is the process, and either the CFO or the Director of Planning can clarify. For the next 4 years, we won't be earning less money on that property than we did for the last several. Is that correct? Because the tax rebate is only on the increase?
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. It is only on the incremental increase that will be occurring with the supplementary once it's issued.
Right. So we will be in the same position for 2 of the next 4 years, and then in a better position 3 years after that, and then a better position 4 years after that, until the 5th year when we are in the best position that we will be in for that particular building.
That is correct.
Yeah, and that's, I thought the answer was going to be, this makes a ton of sense because you are getting people who are overhoused living in 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom properties in the Peapatch or on Rossmore or on, East Champagne that are going to move into this property, sell their house, which will allow someone who's in a starter home to move into those houses and allow someone who's in a rental unit to move into those houses. And it perpetuates the cycle of the continuum of home ownership. And so as you have less need for space, you go into a place with less space. And the fact that it's downtown only amplifies the impact, in my view, because we need more people living downtown if we are ever going to accomplish our downtown redevelopment goals. We've got the Terra Hall building that is going up that was also approved for community improvement plan under the downtown CIP, not the rental housing CIP, but largely achieves the same thing. More people in the downtown with an incentive to build more units in that area. And so this makes total sense from a economic standpoint, total sense from a housing availability standpoint, and total sense from a view of how the property has been used over the last several years to how it is currently used, which is exactly what we want to see in our community. So support this wholeheartedly. And with that, we can have a vote on the matter. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
That carries 10-1 with Councillor Kinnock being nay. And that brings us to agenda item 8.7.1, A1223 OP Affordable Housing Policies. There's a motion by Councillors Hollingsworth and Gardy resolved that the report of the Director of Planning dated January 8, 2024 concerning A1223 OP Affordable Housing Policies Correction Update be received as information.
Mr. Tenazzo?
Thank you, Mayor Shoemaker. This is an informational report. Unfortunately, the incorrect OPA was inadvertently attached to the initial council report. The report recommendation and public notices were consistent with the correct OPA amendment wording. Therefore, the OPA implementing bylaw is located elsewhere on council's agenda and is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Anybody here to speak in opposition to this? Anybody here to speak in favor of this? Okay, seeing none. Council, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries.
And agenda item 9.1, New Year's Eve ball drop. It's a motion by councillors Caputo and Spina. Whereas implementing a New Year's Eve ball drop would align with Sault Ste. Marie's strategic pillar of quality of life, engaging the key focus of creating vibrant downtown areas by providing citizens with new and exciting activities, opportunities to further enjoy our downtown, and give locals an event to look forward to in the winter season. And whereas the New Year's Eve ball drop would align with Sault Ste. Marie's strategic pillar of community development, creating social and economic activity in the downtown and throughout the city. This could be achieved by providing opportunity for businesses to thrive, by driving more tourist visits to engage in Sault Ste. Marie's holiday festivities, and potentially creating a hallmark event for Sault Ste. Marie. And whereas this event would be inclusive to all residents of Sault Ste. Marie, and whereas many neighboring cities have implemented New Year's Eve ball drops and have been seen economic benefits to tourism as well as to the local economy in doing so. Now, therefore, be it resolved that staff be requested to report back to council on creating a free Sault Ste. Marie New Year's Eve ball drop, including costs and plans, and the option of a family-friendly ball drop earlier in the evening, as well as a midnight ball drop. Further, be it resolved that the downtown plaza be considered as the primary location of the event, as it provides ample space, skating rink, food and drink vendors, and was built with the intention of holding such community events. Further, be it resolved that the potential for street closure and Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario licensing of the street be included in the report.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm excited about this resolution, honestly. I was very pleased to bring it forward. The only part that displeases me is that I brought it forward on the heels of seeing so many Sault Ste. Marie residents leave Sault Ste. Marie to celebrate New Year's Eve in a municipality that has a ball drop. I saw many of my friends sharing videos of the Cherry in Traverse City and the street being absolutely packed and music playing and people having a great time. And my immediate thought was, why not us? And why not the plaza? It is what it was built for. Every time I've driven by there over the Christmas holidays, I have seen it being packed with families, kids skating. Elderly folks have commented to me about how lovely it's been. They feel safe around there. And I think anything we can do to continue to amplify the positive effect that we have seen in this short period of the downtown plaza is something that we definitely should consider. And further, I just think it's really important for us to include kids. It's easy in our society to overlook the impact that children can have. We often want to put them in a box and say, like, you know, be quiet, sit down, follow the rules, that sort of thing. So implementing a family ball drop to me is so important. Having a 2-year-old, well, she'll be 2 this week, actually. I would love nothing more than a place seeing her running around and enjoying, you know, that ball dropping and being around other kids. So to me, this is, I mean, I know I wrote it, but it is a slam dunk for me. I love this one. And I think it's going to be a slam dunk for the community. I can't wait to see everyone filling the streets like they do for the tree lighting. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Caputo. Councillor Spina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, Councillor Caputo and I had a chance to meet at the plaza, the downtown plaza the other day, and do a bit of an interview on this exact topic. And I realized that the motion that she drafted to put forward here asks for staff to come back with a couple of different options on things that we can do. But really and truly, I have to say that the downtown plaza has really evolved into something that our community has embraced and our community really truly loves. While we were there, there was absolutely no shortage of individuals who were skating, running around, enjoying the vendors, enjoying the amenities. This is a really natural gathering place for our community. And this is a very natural event that welcomes people and encourages people to gather. So I think this is a fantastic fit. I think it's something that can be, you know, a new tradition in our community for years and years and years to come. And it's going to really highlight what's available in our community, what infrastructure is available, and really help folks create that sense of community, that sense of belonging, that sense of welcoming that we really want to encourage. And I think we're going to see that with this. So I'm happy to support it. I'm happy to second this, and I really look forward to see what's coming. And I'm pretty confident that our newly minted CAO will have a great time planning this with us.
Thank you, Councillor Spina. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you. Great resolution, guys. Well done. Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Vare. Mr. Vare, as your team gets together to do some brainstorming on this, would you consider doing a fun contest? Other communities have done that to say, you know, this is what maybe the ball should look like. To Councillor Caputo's point, the other community has a cherry. Would you be open to having a fun contest? And I'm just using another example. When Toronto came up with the Raptors, they had a fun contest, and it was a wonderful child that came up with the concept, the Raptors, the name. Just curious, would you be open to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I think, yes, we'd be open to that. I mean, staff have had a number of conversations already about it, and have started some research looking at other communities. I know Councillor Caputo mentioned the cherry in Traverse City. You know, there's a pineapple, there's an orange, there's a music note in Nashville, there's a marlin in a community in the East Coast. So lots of different things out there. And I think having something unique for Sault Ste. Marie would be an option we could bring back to council to consider.
So am I hearing that, yes, you're open to having a contest that people can submit an idea and pick a particular item or shape or whatnot?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hollingsworth, I think we're open to the concept, and we can come back to council with some options to see how that could be considered.
Okay, great. Create some fun and some community energy. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. I'm dying to say we could lower the naturally gifted logo from the from the post every year. Councillor Vezo-Allen.
Councillor Caputo and Councillor Spina and my family and I, we are nerds. New Year's Eve, we watch the ball drop, and it's been our tradition. And this year we actually even watched the Nashville ball drop as well after the New York ball drop. So we did too. I think this is a great thing for our community in terms of free access, bringing community together. And after being at the opening of the Youth Wellness Hub today, we know that we need more multi-age events, and this will be free. And I think this can really be as big, if not bigger, than the tree lighting, which is really well attended. And I look forward to it. And I think maybe a rendition of Mr. White's face might be good for our first ball drop. Debating, but no, I think fun is good. And the more that we can bring back from other communities, and why do we leave other communities? And I have to say, seeing the plaza so activated this holiday season has been great. I know Councillor Dufour has brought his kids skating. I brought my kids skating. And the only thing is I wish I skated better. So I'm not that, I got these little kids zipping all around me. So thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing what we can do next New Year.
Thank you, Councillor Vezo-Allen. Councillor Gardy.
Real quickly, whenever the opportunity, I said to myself, whenever the opportunity came up to talk about the plaza after it was established, I was going to. So thanks for the opportunity. It is the ideal location for such an event. It'll be very well attended. What the past council did and this council supported was the right decision. The plaza is reinvigorating downtown. There is always someone there. I was by there Saturday night in a mini blizzard at around 8:30 at night, and there were probably 30 people skating. So be proud of the decisions of the last couple of councils on that piece of infrastructure for downtown. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gardy. Any other councillors, questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we can have a vote on that. All in favor? Any opposed? Carries unanimously.
That will bring us to bylaws. Motion by councillors Spina and Scott, resolved that all bylaws under item 12 of the agenda, save and accept bylaw 2024-9 under date January 8, 2024 be.
All in favor? That carries.
I have a motion by councillors Hollingsworth and Scott, resolved that this council now adjourn.
All in favor? That carries. Thank you, council.